Well, summertime is here. The pool is going to be popping, as the kids say. We're going to be all outside enjoying, summertime by the pool, by the lake, any body of water to really cool off in this North Texas heat. We have Dr. Mark Chassay, who's joining us, representing Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, with some tips on how to keep everyone safe. Dr. Chassay, they call this the silent killer, drowning. It can just happen without a moment's notice.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us for this important subject, Kristen. And yeah, it's silent because sometimes there's no splashing, there's no calling out for help, just like sometimes you might see in the movies, because folks are hyperventilating or water has overcome them, so they don't have the oxygen to be able to make those noises and sounds. So that's why it is silent.
And, all parents know. I mean, they're just trying to get through the summer, try to entertain the kids. And sometimes you might have maybe your siblings' kids and you're taking care of them, or, the neighbors' kids taking care of them. It takes a village, right? And when you've got more than one in the pool, sometimes your eyes can be taken off of one child to the next. And that can be dangerous as well.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, summer's a perfect time to, have cherished memories with family, as you were talking before. I mean, just my kids, they love taking me over to the pool or, going up and down the Texas or Alabama coast. But it's also, there's, some simple precautions. When you talked about everyone maybe as in a family gathering, it's really important that there's an adult, even if there's a lifeguard, that's watching the smaller children. We all get busy. We might be preparing food. We might be dancing in the other part of the lawn, but it's important to have someone that's always watching the perimeter from that standpoint. When they're smaller kids, there needs to be an adult that's within arm reach, because really quickly, within 20, 30 seconds, a younger child can go underwater. And, between ages 1 and 4, drowning is the number one injury and death. And there's things that we can do, again, arm's length, keep a look at the perimeter.
Yeah. How big of a problem are drownings here in the U.S.?
Well, there's about 4,000. So there's 11 a day, which is 11 too many, because a lot of this is preventable. So 4,000 is a lot. And again, even in the teenage population, it's like the second most common cause of death as well.
And, we are specifically focusing on pools or maybe a lake or whatnot, because that's what, North Texans are going to be gravitating to this summertime. But this could happen in a bathtub any time of the year, right?
Absolutely. A small, pre-toddler or toddler could drown in 1 to 2 inches of water. So that means, again, the perimeter, even after rain, like we just had here recently, there might be buckets in your backyard, or maybe even a kiddie pool. Now it's full. You might have done the right thing and emptied that pool so that there was no way for your younger child to fall into that. But you need to think about that after some of these rains that we have, and make sure you're monitoring and emptying those pools as well. We talked a little bit too before about the perimeter, and part of the perimeter is not only with the people that are watching, but when there's nobody there, fences. Ideally we want a 4-foot fence, one that's not really climbable by someone that's very young. Sometimes those are with tall latches. Sometimes those latches are up, 5-6 feet, makes it a little bit harder. You want them to really be self-latching and self-closing, so that when they close, they're closed and they're locked.
Those are great tips. Let's talk about, just the atmosphere. What are some other limitations you might encourage adults to take on?
Yeah, I minimize alcohol use. Hate to be a bearer of bad news, but that could cause issues with your ability to keep up track with time, etc. So there needs to be someone that's literally like the designated watcher, the adult that's keeping an eye on the kids and such. That's really, really important. And I think also it kind of the culture of making sure that if you're going to be around water a lot, or even if you're not, you're always having your younger kids ask you, is it okay to even walk towards a pool or go towards the water without your permission? You want them to be able to know that the first thing, just like crossing the street, you want them to ask you, you want them to turn around and ask you if they can get into the body of water.
Absolutely. Sometimes you have the older kids kind of babysitting the kids when, everybody's all in the pool or whatnot. Talk to me about just educating children on that pool safety themselves. If they're, playing around and they notice, somebody is struggling.
Yeah, a lot of times you might get different areas of the pool where maybe you got teenagers and they're horsing around for the most part, and you might have some younger kids that might want to come and be a part of that. Because let's face it, younger kids are very curious, and they like to get in areas where sometimes they just don't know what the depths of the water, etc. So again, I think it's good to have keeping eyes on that, making sure you're keeping alcohol to a minimum intake. Making sure that, folks are taking breaks, making sure that everyone has good swimming techniques and abilities. Just dropped my son off at a camp, and the first thing we did was they wanted to see the swim test. They wanted to see how all the kids were going to do in the water, because there's some bodies of water around there. And luckily, he's a great swimmer, and he shot out there and he got that done completed. But I thought that was interesting. I had not seen that before. And I thought it was great that they did some swim tests. So maybe that could scale over to even folks that are at your own house. You might ask them, let me see how you can swim, and see if there might be something that you need to help them with a little bit more, or keep an eye on them a little bit more because you see what their swimming technique might be.
Dr. Chassay, I think of my childhood and I remember, oh my goodness, having to put those bright orange floaties on my arm. Is this still?
You're young. We didn't have those back when
You
it
didn't
was.
have I just remember they used to put them on dry and it would give you a skin burn pulling those things up. You should put them on first and then blow them up, but that's not how my parents did it. But anyhow, is flotation devices, have they evolved? Are they still a good practice to use for kids that maybe don't know how to swim very well?
Yeah, absolutely. If they can't swim, you want to make sure that they've got flotation devices or your swim vest, especially if you're on out in large bodies of water. You never know when a big wave might come, even knock people off the boat. Younger kids need to make sure that they have that, as well as adults, really, for the whole time, because you never know what's going to happen, even if you're on a lake with a large wave that can knock you into the water. Yeah, they continue to be important. They've evolved with their sturdiness through summer and the heat. Some of them aren't as aesthetically pleasing if you have but a lot of them are becoming these little like full body vests for the younger ones, and it really keeps them upright. But again, if they get flipped over, they can get water in their lungs really quickly.
So it is still important. Don't just rely on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know my parents used to always have those pool noodles too, and they was like, grab a pool noodle if you need it. You have something to grab onto if you're not close to the ledge.
Yeah.
And that would always help us. I don't know about you, but I know one other tip that, I wanted to share with our listeners when I think about pool safety is, as kids, we were so rambunctious and we would just all be running in the pool and playing pool, pool games, diving underneath. And sometimes you don't see who's under the water, who's swimming underwater. And so I remember my parents always saying, you need to always double check before you jump in the pool. Because one time somebody jumped on top of me. I was swimming underneath the water and their knee hit my back and I gasped for air underneath, the water and, started choking and, thank God didn't get to the point where I was drowning. I mean, my dad reached down, grabbed me real quick, but that could also happen. You're just not intentionally not being safe, or, if you're just underneath the water, somebody jumps on top of you by accident with all the kids, being around, but that can also be dangerous.
Sure. Just diving head into not knowing where you're going is terrible in itself. If you think about some of the creeks and lakes, not recommended to ever go head first. You don't know how shallow it's going to be. You don't know what rocks are down there. You don't know what you may end up hit that could cause a neck injury of some sort. Same thing for you. The deep end in the pool, sometimes you can't see diving in. You got to make sure that everybody's kind of for lack of a better word, kind of roping it off. If everybody's jumping in, doing cannonballs, whatever that is, make sure everybody's clearing out. That's what those lifeguards are doing at those public pools. They're waiting for everybody after they've dove into the deep end to move to the side so that the next
Absolutely.
person, so that there's no collision. So
And we
good.
know there is a shortage everywhere for lifeguards. So thank God for our lifeguards that are there. And maybe somebody will listen to this and they'll think about picking that up as a side gig this summer too, because we
Yeah.
definitely need that. Dr.
You
Mark
want to make good
Chassay,
money and be out in the sun.
no kidding, right? Get a good tan for this summer.
Make
Dr.
sure you put on
Chassay,
your sunscreen.
absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about, pool safety, water safety in general this summer?
No, I think we hit a lot of the great points, from, making sure the little toddlers are going to be safe and that they can drown at 1 to 2 inches, making sure you're wearing your life vest, really that you're staying mobile and keeping an eye on the facilities and the perimeter, and gates are important even when you're not there.
Absolutely. Dr. Mark Chassay, Chief Medical Officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. Thank you so much for the time here on KRLD.
Thank you.